ChatGerry Alzheimer's disease resulting from common chronic conditions No.1513 VPT 071, January 24, 2026. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, category Dementia. Preface. In recent years, I have learned that several people I once worked or studied with have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease. These are not distant cases to me. They are people I laughed with, shared experiences with, and respected deeply. Watching their lives change has been painful and sobering. I have not been diagnosed with dementia or cancer myself. However, I have spent many years reading medical books and research papers on both topics. While much of the science is impressive, most of the writing is filled with technical language that ordinary people cannot understand. When patients and families cannot understand what they read, learning stops. Confusion grows. Fear quietly takes over. What has affected me the most are the voices of their loved ones. I have listened to spouses and children describe exhaustion, anxiety, and helplessness. Behind every diagnosis is a family carrying emotional pain, physical strain, and often serious financial stress. These realities are rarely discussed in academic papers. Yet they shape everyday life far more than statistics do. This is why I wrote this paper. I did not write it to impress professionals or promote a theory. I wrote it to speak directly to patients and families, using normal language, with respect and compassion. My hope is that clearer understanding can reduce fear, restore a sense of control, and help people face these illnesses with dignity. Introduction. Alzheimer's disease is often described as a memory problem. Memory loss is what we see on the surface. The real damage, however, develops quietly inside the brain over many decades. In most cases, Alzheimer's is closely linked to long-term metabolic and vascular conditions such as obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. These conditions are strongly shaped by daily habits, including food intake, physical activity, sleep, and long-term stress. By the time dementia is diagnosed, much of the underlying damage has already accumulated. The brain is an energy-hungry organ. It cannot store fuel every second. It depends on steady blood flow to deliver oxygen, nutrients, and glucose, because most deaths are related to vascular damage. The health of the heart and blood vessels is central to brain health. When this delivery system is strained year after year, brain cells weaken, connections fade, and thinking ability slowly declines. This process is slow, silent, and cumulative. Plain talk about Alzheimer's disease. What people notice first. In the early stage, people forget recent conversations, repeat questions, or struggle to find words. Thinking feels slower. Planning and multitasking become harder. Family members often notice subtle personality changes before obvious memory loss appears. In the middle stage, daily life becomes difficult. People become confused about time and place. Judgment worsens. Mood swings, anxiety, and irritability increase. In the late stage, language, recognition, and movement fail. Full-time care becomes necessary. These changes reflect gradual system failure in the brain, not a sudden event. I do not have dementia. However, based on decades of experience in engineering and artificial intelligence, I have seen how powerful modern systems have become. Robots already build cars, operate complex machinery, and work continuously with high precision. For this reason, I believe that AI-driven systems will soon assist with physical patient care. They will not replace human compassion, but they can reduce physical burden, support mobility, and allow caregivers to focus more on emotional connection and dignity. What is happening inside the brain? Several damaging processes occur together over many years. First, blood flow through the brain's smallest vessels becomes less efficient. As these vessels stiffen and narrow, delivery of oxygen, nutrients, and glucose declines. Second, brain cells lose the ability to produce energy efficiently. Without enough energy, they cannot maintain structure or communicate properly. Third, waste products that are normally cleared during sleep begin to accumulate. Sleep is when the brain cleans itself, much like taking out the trash at night. When sleep is poor or stress is constant, this cleaning process slows. Waste builds up. Inflammation remains active. What should be a short repair response becomes chronic damage. Fourth, many brain cells remain alive, but the connections between them weaken. Signals travel less efficiently. This is why thinking speed and mental clarity often decline early, even before severe memory loss appears. In simple terms, the brain becomes underfueled, undercleaned, and overstressed. Major conditions that increase Alzheimer's risk. Alzheimer's rarely occurs alone. It is strongly linked to common chronic conditions. High fasting glucose damages small blood vessels and disrupts how brain cells use energy. Even when blood flow appears adequate, cells cannot use fuel efficiently. Excess body weight, especially visceral fat, drives chronic inflammation. This weakens blood vessels and reduces the brain's ability to repair itself. High blood pressure injures small brain vessels and disrupts stable blood flow. Two measures are important. Pulse pressure (PP), defined as systolic minus diastolic pressure, reflects vessel stiffness. High values indicate poor cushioning of each heartbeat. Mean arterial pressure map reflects average delivery force. When too high, it damages vessels. When too low, organs are undersupplied. Poor sleep reduces waste removal. Low physical activity weakens blood circulation and energy production. These factors interact and reinforce each other over decades. Why drugs have limited effect? Most Alzheimer's drugs target a single downstream effect, such as protein buildup. They do not address decades of metabolic and vascular damage. Drugs cannot end years of high glucose exposure, reverse vessel stiffness, restore blood circulation efficiency, or rebuild lost connections. As a result, benefits are modest and temporary. Alzheimer's is a whole system disease, not a single target problem. Alzheimer's disease versus vascular dementia. Alzheimer's usually begins with memory problems and progresses gradually. Vascular dementia results from repeated injury to small vessels and reduced blood flow. It often begins with slowed thinking and poor decision-making and worsens in steps. Many people develop a mixture of both conditions, driven by the same metabolic and vascular stresses. Early warning signs years before diagnosis. Long before memory loss appears, warning signs often show up elsewhere. Rising fasting glucose, gradual weight gain, increasing or unstable blood pressure, poor sleep quality, reduced walking or exercise endurance, slower thinking under stress. These are system signals, not just memory problems. A simple system model for brain risk. Brain damage accumulates quietly over years. Daily memory testing is not required to understand this long-term risk. A dementia risk proxy, or DRP, can be defined using for long-term averages, fasting glucose, body weight, mean arterial pressure, and pulse pressure. Values above healthy reference levels indicate sustained stress on the brain system. This is not a diagnostic tool. It is an early warning indicator. When DRP stays high for many years, hidden damage accumulates. When DRP declines, long-term risk improves. My personal dementia risk over 16 years, depending on definitions, about 15% to 45% of people with dementia also have diabetes. Most studies cluster around 25% to 33% for senior citizens. My own data show that dementia risk accumulates heavily during a relatively short midlife period. By 2013, more than 77% of total long-term stress had already accumulated. By 2015, over 95% was in place. Later improvements reduced ongoing stress but could not erase earlier damage. For my dementia risk estimation, fasting glucose was the largest contributor, 34%, about 1/3 of total impact. Weight, mean arterial pressure, and pulse pressure contributed similar shares, 21% to 23%. All four stresses moved together, confirming a tightly coupled system. This explains why dementia appears late, even though causes begin decades earlier. Conclusions on prevention. In simple terms, prevention is not about one pill. It is about reducing daily stress over many years. Maintain healthy body weight. Keep fasting glucose low and stable. Control blood pressure and vessel stiffness. Walk or exercise every day. Protect sleep quality and sufficient sleep hours. Small daily actions matter more than short-term effort. Final message for readers. Alzheimer's disease is not sudden, mysterious, or inevitable. It is the late-stage result of long-term metabolic and vascular stress applied to the brain. Genes may influence vulnerability, but lifestyle largely determines outcome. Early understanding gives the brain a fighting chance. Epilogue. I deliberately chose plain language instead of academic publication style. Most papers are written for professionals, not for patients. My goal is different. I want readers to understand what is happening inside their bodies. Understanding reduces fear. It restores control. This work goes beyond research. It becomes education, guidance, and human support. The brain is downstream from the body. Take care of the body, and the brain has a fighting chance. Disclaimer: write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights belong to the author, Gerald C. HSU. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.